Hey guys, Alec here, Strictly Ball Business, here with my best bud Dalton, and we're talking about the National Basketball Association. Nothing better as we're finally in the playoffs. I mean, not even just the play-in, we're talking playoffs, baby. And with that, we've got a couple teams that we want to say farewell to still that didn't make the playoffs, and we want to dive into some teams that are surprising us. So we'll let you know. We're going to talk about the Pacers, who obviously had a very disappointing season, more than they obviously fell a lot short of expectations for most people. But we're also going to talk about Jalen Brunson, somebody who is performing really well in the playoffs and is in line for a big payday. And we're going to break down the Celtics-Nets matchup. Why is there so much tension? We all, obviously know that, but who's going to end up winning this thing in the end? And we're also going to talk about who we think our most likely upset is. And we're going to talk about the Pelicans. They've been so good now all of a sudden, just been on a tear ever since their terrible first start to start the season. And after that, we're going to dive a little bit into Nikola Jokic and how he can maybe figure out his emotions moving forward. So starting out, we're talking about the Indiana Pacers. This is their offseason preview. They just came off of a dreadful season where they had, hopes that they would maybe make the playoffs with a new hire of Rick Carlisle. They had Sabonis and Turner going into the season along with their boy Malcolm Brogdon, and they end up shaking things up. And they had Karis LeVert too, and they end up having to shake things up because they were so bad for this season. But what they can do next year is they can hope that things are going to get better, and they can expect that things are going to get better because they have a lot of good assets. And why don't you dig into what you think is their best asset going into next year?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination. So TJ Warren's really their only expiring contract. Rubio is, but Rubio's not going to be a sign and trade. I'd be surprised if Rubio was a sign and trade for anybody. But TJ Warren's really the expiring. I don't know if he would even be a sign and trade. I think it's very more possible that he'll just sign somewhere. However, it's a possibility. They're turning over into expire. So Turner and Badatse are now expiring contracts. So they picked Turner. They may stay with him at the same time. I do think it's worth trading Turner on expiring. I think you could get some more assets back, especially on the timeline they are. Brogdon will become trade eligible. I think he's the odd one out of this whole team. Halliburton's proven he's the point guard they're going to go with. And obviously you can get pretty decent value for Brogdon, honestly. Yeah. I think there's a lot of teams that would love to have him. I
think he's by far their biggest asset in terms of what they have right now. They can trade him away and get easily a first round pick and then something else for him. Maybe a mid first round even, because I could see a team that wants to leap forward, seeing Malcolm Brogdon as a guy that can help them get over a hump.
Yeah, I can see the Mavericks putting in 2 first-round picks and Bertans, and then maybe, a little bit more filler just to get Brogdon. I think that would be a nice fit.
Yeah, as your Jalen Brunson replacement.
Yeah, assuming he leaves, which we'll get to later. But yeah, that would be... And he's a legit star. Brogdon is. He's proven. Maybe not an all-star, but he can definitely contribute at an all-star level. He's consistent
for sure. Yeah, he's worth his money. It just got extended, so you've got him under contract as the new team bringing him in, and he's a veteran player who understands what he's got to do. He's played with the Bucks, had some good playoff seasons there. They haven't gotten to where they want to go with Indiana, so they got to switch things up a little bit. But I applaud Indiana for realizing they had to flip Karis LeVert so fast, and I expect they'll do the same with Brogdon here. They finally let go of Sabonis. If they don't trade Turner, I suspect they give him an extension because that's probably what he would want. Yeah, I'm sure he wants some long-term security. And why wouldn't they give it to him? He's still tradable on a 3-4 year deal.
For sure. And there's lots of teams out there that would love to have Turner. Timberwolves, we have mentioned for a long time that he would be ideal for their power forward center type deal. Another thing that's worth saying is Brissett's contract expired, and he's definitely worth a contract. I don't know why they wouldn't throw something at him. If not a starter on a championship team, which I'm not convinced yet, could he get there? Maybe. But at the very least, his floor is definitely a great rotation player to have on a team.
Yeah, I think he would be a guy the Pacers should keep and help grow around. I think what they're hoping for with this offseason is that they're going to, first of all, get a top pick. They had a bad enough record where they could possibly get the number 1 or at least top 3 pick. And that's great news for them because, it's a solid draft. Paulo Banchero just declared today. We know Chet's coming out into this too. Who knows? Maybe if they got a good enough pick to get him, that makes the decision to get rid of Turner a whole lot easier.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Projected top 5 pick. I mean, projected 5th pick, honestly, is actually what it is. But lottery, they could fall anywhere. And
there's enough. There's enough good guys in there. You got Holmgren, you've got Banchero. Who's that other?
Jabari Parker.
His name. Yeah, Jabari Parker is the guy a lot of people think is going to be number 1 overall, actually.
Yeah, I have this thing about like athletic forwards that I just don't think that they're the first pick type deal. I mean, look at Simmons, Zion. Granted, those two are both good, but like they've had issues, their own issues. Aaron Gordon was a 5th pick overall. He was drafted for being that. Obi Toppin was just purely drafted off his athleticism.
Obi Toppin was just a bad pick. I mean, those other guys have become legitimate players. So I would argue getting a ready now forward who's good at defense is maybe a better choice, maybe a wiser choice these days. Look at what worked out with Scotty Barnes as a 4th overall pick.
I mean, assuming their timeline is obviously to get rid of Brogdon and maybe to get rid of Turner, they're really flexible to anything except for a point guard, which this is the draft where there's no real playmaking point guard that stands out like that. I mean, Jaden Ivey's a guard. He's going to be really good. Johnny Davis is obviously good, but none of them stick out where like it would be redundant to draft them on their team. So they're really flexible where they could really draft anything. I would like them to get a forward like Keegan Murray, Paolo, Jabari. Either of those guys would be perfect. But it is safe to say if they hit on this draft and they get another star, if they get rid of Turner and Brogdon, they're freeing up for a max contract in 2023.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who you're going to get on a max coming to Indiana. You probably just hope that. I mean, at that point, you're going to have to pay Haliburton as well, so you got to keep that in mind. He's going to have a big salary.
He's not
maybe
eligible
they can trade for someone
year after. So it would be more like them going out
and
doing a max for like maybe not a Tobias Harris type player, but it'd be like that type of deal where you get a fringe all-star on a max contract, but still it's something and you can take that contract and match it to someone else and it's not a complete dead money.
I think there's better opportunity to trade for a guy. I mean, the best free agent they've been able to convince to come to Indiana in recent history is Malcolm Brogdon. And I'm pretty sure that's like the most money they've given out to a free agent was to him. So I wouldn't anticipate that happening. But with a trade, I mean, you can bring in anybody. So who knows? Maybe you stockpile some picks here. You trade away Brogdon. You trade away Hield. You trade away Turner. You just get as many picks as you can. And then, who knows, maybe it works out for you where you're able to trade for a guy down the road. I think that can make some sense. But who's that guy going to be? It's hard to project, but probably a guy who's going to get fed up on being on a bad team right now, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, the free agency, looking at it right now, assuming there's player options and stuff, it's like there's a lot of free agents. I mean, there's like
half the guys end up getting extended before then, though.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't see Vucevic getting extended. If Fred VanVleet declines, I can see them throwing a max at him. I don't know why Toronto wouldn't, but they put him in the running. Obviously, guys like Chris Middleton has a player option. Would he stay? Would they steal another buck? I don't know. And Kristaps and Andrew Wiggins. I don't know. We'll see as we get closer to it. It's hard.
Andrew Wiggins sounds like a guy they'd give a big contract to.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. But they have I'm excited. I think they're gonna have not a busy offseason, but they're just going out. I think they're gonna comb through, grab some guys, maybe re-sign a few veterans. I think Rubio would be fine to re-sign. I mean, he's a veteran that would be nice on any young team, honestly. Really, any team could be a backup point guard at this point in this league, like a very efficient backup point guard. Like a Sean Livingston type role for the Warriors 2-3 years
Ricky
ago.
Rubio is a solid player. That would be good for them. They're going to get to a point where they're going to be super young, so they're going to have to get in as many wise vets as they can. I've kind of heard lately that Rubio is considering maybe going back to Spain, though. I mean, does he want to, go to somewhere like Indiana, a guy where when he came to the league, he said he wanted to play in a big market? I just have a hard time seeing that. But if he wants to stay in the NBA, maybe he won't have many options. So
yeah, I mean, I can feel like if somebody gives him like a veteran, if all he's getting is like $4 million offer from the Rockets, I feel like he'd be like, I'm just gonna go to He's like, if it's not a contender, they probably have to pay him a high mid-level exception, which is like 8 to 12, and if he's not making that, he's probably just gonna go back to Spain.
Yeah, because he can just go back to Spain, instantly be the best player in the league, and get paid just as much, and he will be by his family and friends. Yeah. So, that makes too much sense. So we'll be watching the end of Rubio's NBA career here soon for sure. But let's move on from the Pacers. We've talked a bit about them. We're talking about an exciting guy here, Jalen Brunson. He has just blown away expectations. We thought he was an up-and-comer coming into the last couple seasons, but this year he ends up starting 61 out of 79 games, kind of out of nowhere, but being the crutch for Luka most of the season. And just last game, he ends up dropping 41 points and leading his team to a win over the Utah Jazz, just turning the NBA on its side.
Yeah, he's great. I've always said, and I will always keep saying it, that I loved him coming out of college, second-round pick. I was so surprised. But, he's great. I don't know if he can ever be a future All-Star just because I don't think he's going to be around a cast that would allow him to be the All-Star, you know what I mean? Like, he's very complimentary to others. I would not be surprised if he did.
I think he can squeak one out. I mean,
maybe one or two, yeah.
Don't you think like Jalen Brunson can get to the talent level that Fred VanVleet is?
Yeah, that's right. I see him very much as a Fred VanVleet type player, but his play with the 41 points just proves the point we made early on when we were talking about Jalen Brunson and the Rockets, that this playing next to Luka probably is not the best suit. I mean, it's probably great to play next to Luka, but his skill set is to be in that Luka role. So to me, that main facilitator, that leader on the court, and that's why I see him moving on from the Mavericks, either in a sign and trade or just signing somewhere else in free agency. And I have three top teams that I'd like to see him. Maybe not; these aren't most likely. These are where I think he would excel best at, and I can let you know and see what you would think. So my third one we talked about is the Rockets. I think that would be great, and they could just straight up sign him. Or there's sign and trades in the works too if they would want to give up like Christian Wood or Eric Gordon in those trades. But I think he would be able to run the offense. He would take over, much like what they were trying to get KPJ to do this season. He would just take over. He would have everything. He'd get a guy like Jalen Green who fits next to him way better than Luka does. And that's nothing against Luka. Luka is a guy with the ball in his hands, and so is Jalen. So I think that would be great for him. I think I would love to see him on the Rockets. And he's not trying to... I mean, he could be trying to win right now, but he could also really excel that team and push them into not as much... push them out of their rebuild, where they have all these young assets and guys that can produce now. What do you think, Rockets?
Yeah, I mean, Rockets makes a ton of sense. We talked about that on our last show about Brunson. He has previous rapport with our boy Steven Silas over there, so you know that there's not going to be a strong learning curve to the offense or anything. And he can go in there, be a leader to a lot of these guys. He's been in the league a couple years longer than Jalen Green and these other rookies they drafted this year, and Şengün, stuff like that. And he is perfect in getting the ball to the guys to get them open shots. And he takes pressure off of other guys just by, having them drawn out to him, especially on the 3-point line. So makes a lot of sense because he would improve Jalen Green. He would improve Jae'Sean Tate and Josh Christopher and these other guys, even the guys on the perimeter and the guys inside. I think it would just accelerate their rebuild.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome for them. And I don't think it will hurt their rebuild either. It's not like you're pulling in an all-star and suddenly like they're going to hijack the offense. I think he will help their offense.
Well, either way, they have a top pick this year.
Mhm.
So
yeah,
that doesn't change regardless of him.
No.
So that's good.
Yeah, you're right. My second team that I actually really like him to go to, and I think it's kind of interesting, is the Clippers. And I think they could get him in a sign and trade. So remember, in sign and trades, it is more in the player. The player has more control. So people say, like, in a sign and trade, like, the team wouldn't do that, but like the team will, if they think he's going to go somewhere, they will take whatever. If they know he's not going to sign with them, they're like, yeah, we'll take it, whatever. And I think
it's better that than pissing him off and then him going somewhere else where they couldn't get something back. So you might as well let him go where he wants. It's always how it works out.
Yeah. So the sign and trade, I think, would revolve around Morris and Reggie Jackson. And personally, I think Reggie Jackson would fit better next to Luka, as he plays more off ball now with Paul George anyway. And Reggie Jackson is a better shooter than Jalen Brunson, especially catch and shoot. So I think that would fit a lot better next to Luka. And Mavericks are kind of like that, where they're like, it doesn't seem like they're trying to get a star next to Luka. They're trying to get more complementary players, as you see with the trading Kristaps for Bertans and Dinwiddie, which worked out for them. And I think Morris and Reggie Jackson could fit better than Jalen Brunson does within the Mavericks. And obviously Jalen Brunson would be that main primary playmaker that the Clippers have been looking for.
No, yeah, I think that would be awesome for both sides. If you're Dallas, I think you really hope you can get Norman Powell instead of those guys in the trade. Yeah. But maybe that's asking for too much. But if they can haggle long enough, maybe they can make it happen. But I'd still be happy with the combination of Reggie and Morris if I was Dallas, because, they're two culture changers. They're guys who have been in the playoffs deep. They're going to protect Luka.
Solid vets.
And they're good. They're not bad players, to be honest with you. They can both hit their shots a lot of nights. So I don't think that would be bad for a guy you'd be losing no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my final place.
Brunson is restricted too, so they can always, resign.
Yeah.
We'll just put that out there.
Yeah, that's right. They can match if he's restricted, but players do have so much control now, and people are like, why don't you just sign it? Because you don't want to sign a player that doesn't want to be there. It only is bad for the culture. So that's what people don't always understand. If he doesn't want to be there, he's not gonna accept. He's gonna have to do it.
I think you're overvaluing that. They can always sign him and trade him later or something. Teams always want to get their value. Dallas would be asinine to let Brunson walk away for nothing, and I think they would rather match whatever contract he gets and try to trade him later than lose him for nothing. That's just how I see it.
Is he restricted? No, he's not a restricted. I didn't think he was anyway, because he was a second round pick.
Oh, because he's second? Oh, yeah. Shit. Okay, so throw that all out the window. My bad. He's unrestricted, so oof. Man, Dallas was silly for not extending him before.
Yeah. It's a tough situation. But now, my final one, I don't think this is going to happen, but it's I think it would be perfect, is the Celtics. I think the Celtics could throw together any amount of salary, do what they can to get him. Obviously, we just talked about the Mavericks would just, if they're going to lose him for nothing, they'd take whatever. They'd take Al Horford and maybe some, the slew of perimeter defenders the Celtics have gathered throughout the years, whether it be Grant Williams or whatever, and I think they'd just take that and roll with it. But I think Jalen would be that guy I keep talking about, that playmaker to run the offense. I think he would fit in seamlessly next to Tatum, Robert Williams, Jaylen Brown. I think that would be perfect. And next to Marcus Smart, he's a dog. They'd all fit. I think that'd be the perfect instant contenders for me. That's what would put the Celtics over the top.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think that makes a ton of sense. It just depends on how much the Celtics value him, if they want to throw a huge contract at him, because I think it might become a bidding war for Jalen Brunson. But that's a great fit for both of them. They land their guy, a solid playmaker, a guy who can score at the point, and he's young. So he can, fit into this young crew that they have and really start a new dynasty.
Oh, yeah. And I just think it would be perfect. Yeah, young, you got nothing but time. You get him. He's got time to fit in and to be contenders. And they're all around from 25 to 23 or whatever. I don't know how old Jalen is, but they're all around that time. Another Jalen to add. Yeah,
the triple J's.
Triple J's.
Jason, then they get Jaren Jackson, and then they they beat Triple J's with Triple J.
Then there's so many Triple J, quadruple J's with Triple J. But that's my three. I think that those are all three preferred landing spots. If I were Jalen, I would want to go to all three of those places where they fit him better. He's not resorted to an off ball too, which he just isn't. And he's shown that he excels as the point guard, not the shooting guard next to Luka. So I'd like to see that.
Well, as we've seen in most free agents, they typically go for the money. And I don't know if every team's going to offer Jalen, crazy money, but a couple teams might. And one of the teams that I think will is the New York Knicks. I think they definitely are going to want to get Jalen Brunson in the door or into the building, because he instantly becomes a huge part of their offense, instantly becomes maybe their best offensive player, and really carries a lot of weight over there if he goes to New York. What do you think of that one?
I think, if I were Jalen, you get to definitely run. The offense is yours. He gets to come in and manipulate it the way he can. It's the Knicks. When was the last time they had a good point guard?
Maybe Marbury.
It's been a while since they had like a point guard as good as him. Kemba was that hope, didn't happen. Derrick Rose a few years ago was that hope, didn't happen. So whatever. I mean, like, I think it would be great. I don't think the Knicks will get him. Knicks never get anyone they want. So
one more, Detroit as a possible fit, as they want to accelerate their rebuild and get a solid playmaker next to Cade and kick Killian Hayes out the door.
I don't see that one. I feel like it falls into the same issue as the Mavericks. If I were Jalen, I wouldn't want to go there. Could the Pistons put money up for it to happen? Yeah. Could he accept it? Yeah. I just see Cade as very much the same type of playmaker as Luka, and I would see that as more redundant too. I don't see that as the best fit, but it could certainly happen if the Pistons are capable of paying him as much money. So
yeah, I saw reports that they were interested. I thought it was interesting too because of that same thing. It seems like Cade would be your Luka if you're the Detroit Pistons, but maybe they want to have two solid scorers there, and they're looking at what's in Dallas and like, oh, that looks good to us.
Yeah.
They're in the playoffs. That probably looks great to them.
Yeah. I mean, Pistons love giving as much money to like not the best player. Not that he's not the best player, but I can see them. If they could, they would probably give him a max because the Pistons, that's the Pistons.
So we'll see. Stupid money. Well, that's Jalen Brunson. So I think we'll move on from that into a playoff matchup that everyone's had their eyes on. The Celtics and Nets. This game, game one, they ended in a buzzer beater. So of all things, it's already off to an accelerated start. Tonight, as we're recording this, is game two. I'm not sure when we'll drop this episode, but I'm sure it'll still be a close series whenever that is, as these two teams are just going back and forth. I mean, Kyrie is looking like a monster on a mission. He can play every game now. Kevin Durant was not very good in game one, but I expect him to bounce back the rest of the series. And outside of that, I don't really think like this is your prototypical 2-7 matchup. Obviously, I think it's not fair to really say if the Nets win that it was an upset. It's like both these teams are really good.
No, yeah, this is very much not like that. I mean, the Nets really play like a top 4 seed, honestly. And I think this is kind of the perfect test to see Celtics better team on paper. They fit together. They play better. They play by miles better defense, best defense in the league to one of the worst. But they also have a great offense. So on paper, it's an experiment of how far can two superstars carry you on the Nets side. I mean, two Hall of Fame type players. And so even though Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown are obviously very good, they're superstars in their own right. But this is the perfect test. On paper, the Celtics should win. That's what I'm saying. But I'm not.
Robert Williams is out right now as well, so you got to take that into consideration. And your defensive player of the year, Marcus Smart, just gave up 39 points to Kyrie in game one. So I think there's a strong possibility that the Nets will win this thing, and they are my pick to pull it off.
I don't, just because they're defensive player of the year, like they go matchup hunting, and they'll do whatever they can to get Smart off of Kyrie. And a defensive player isn't. When you have a player like Kyrie, you can't stop Kyrie. You can't stop Kevin Durant. But you can do your best to make them uncomfortable, and that's what PJ Tucker did in the Nets series last year against the Bucks. And you can say like he affected Kevin Durant. Maybe Kevin Durant wouldn't have taken that extra step into the three-pointer, and then they wouldn't have gone to overtime, and then the Nets would have won that game. You never know, but like it's just those situations, and that's what Pat Bev does too. It's just making them uncomfortable. So I don't think that's the biggest solution, but I can also see the Nets taking this series. Robert Williams won't be back. They said he definitely won't come back in this Nets series. They said they're hoping to get him back by round 2. They're a little more confident than everyone else so that they'll make it to round 2. But
yeah, we'll see.
Somebody has to. I trust Udoka though. His defense has turned out to be great. I think they're gonna make changes just like Kyrie and Kevin Durant are going to make changes for this next game. Celtics have the better coach and a lot like by miles. He's first year and he's way better than Steve Nash. That some people might think that's unfair to say, but I think it's true.
Well, I think Steve Nash realizes that he coaches stars and he lets them do his thing. You know, today he was asked about what he thought about Kyrie flipping off the Celtics fans, and he said, you know, how many points did Kyrie have?
Yeah.
39. He's like, well, I don't care what he does then.
Yeah.
He lets his stars be stars. And I think stardom is going to pull them through here. I may sound like an NBA casual for that, but believe it or not, I've been watching basketball since some of these fuckers have been in diapers. I'm old. Yeah. I'm like 82, just so we know.
But when has that worked out for like the team is when, I mean, granted, there's certain examples,
stars,
but that extent, when a coach just says, all right, I'll let you guys do whatever, to the extent that Steve Nash
it's worked on it's worked on a lot of LeBron's teams, I'm sure. I mean, when he had Mike Brown, they didn't win a championship, but they made it to one. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah, but look what happened to the Lakers. I mean, Ty Lue has been proven that he is a great coach, even though he was quiet. He's a very quiet coach, and people thought, like at the time when he was in Cleveland with LeBron, I heard it all the time that they're like, oh, he's just a figurehead. He's just there to take up a coaching spot. And people just assumed that because of LeBron and because he was, Ty Lue was such a young hire. But since he's been moved, everybody, or since he's been with the Clippers, everybody's realized like, oh, this guy has some of the best rotation choices in the NBA. Like he knows how to make good adjustments. So in that way, he doesn't really let his stars be stars in that way. Like he'll go with the hot lineup, but he's had a lot of his stars injured too. Nash has had to deal with similar adversity here. Yeah, they ended up with the 8th seed, but he's had like the weirdest, troubles you could have as a coach. So, I applaud him for being able to stick through all that, and he's still got this team cohesive and looking really solid. Right. Well, we'll see. I mean, this is the test, right? So one of these teams, it's crazy that one of these teams is going to get bounced in the first round. So.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. This could very easily be a Eastern Conference Finals. It'd be a really fun one. But this is going to be a really fun playoffs overall. And I've been watching like most games. So looking forward to seeing some more.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about our most likely upset in the playoffs. Who do you think has the best chance to upset someone?
I think we're probably going to think similar, but I do want to touch on 2 matchups that are closest to being actual that have the most likely version. And a lot of people, in the way that they talk about the Nets and how they're contenders, would see the Celtics winning as an upset. They're not my most likely upset, but I just want to touch on that, saying that like if this young team beats out the Nets, who were the favorite going into the season to win the championship, I think it's worth saying that could be upset in a lot of people's minds. I do think the Hawks and Heat, granted, Clint Capella won't come back till like Game 5, so that kind of hinders theirs. But that had a potential to be an upset, as Trae Young. All Clint Capella has to do is play great team defense, and suddenly they're a good team again. However, he's been really inconsistent all season. Trae Young has been great. But that could have been a matchup. It still could be, but I highly doubt that they'll turn it around. But the matchup I think we both are talking about is the Grizzlies and the Wolves. I think the Wolves have the best chance to upset the 2-seeded Grizzlies. I think they certainly have all the talent, and it's really going to come down to defense, and that's going to make the series.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's an interesting one to watch as the 7 seed attacking the 2 seed, and the Wolves and Grizzlies are both just as young as each other, and it's really going to come out to maybe 7 games who can win that last game. I could definitely see this one coming down to the wire.
Yeah.
I actually had my pick different. I don't know if you want to keep diving into the Wolves matchup more though.
No, we've talked about the Wolves a lot. Usually the best. I just want to put. Usually the best player wins.
Yesterday.
Yeah, it got blown out yesterday, but they took they got rid of the advantage. But usually the best player wins these series. Ja Morant, I do think, is the best player, but behind him, Bane and Jackson are the best 2 players. And I don't think Edwards is that far behind. He's shown that he's not that far behind Ja. And Towns and Russell are much better than Bane and Jackson. So I think it's a really interesting idea there. I do think D'Lo will come down. How well he does will decide the series for the Wolves and the Grizzlies.
Yeah, he struggled to start out this series. If he can pull it together, like, he's a huge X factor. The Grizzlies obviously have fantastic defense. Jaren Jackson had 6 blocks in the first game, and then the
3 of them were on
Grizzlies
D'Lo.
held the Timberwolves to under 100 points as well the second game. So, that's what would worry me as a Timberwolves fan, having to face the staunch defense. Fortunately for the Wolves, they are number 1 in turnovers forced, so they're able to create some quick offense that way when they're struggling. But if they're shooting poorly, and facing a great defensive team isn't going to help that. Mm-hmm. This team can be pretty streaky.
Yeah, we'll see. And that their 3-point is their offense. So when they're not hitting threes, their offense isn't rolling. But who's your pick?
Yeah, I figured you were gonna think I would go with the Wolves over the Grizzlies, so I was like, I'll throw them a curveball. I'll talk about a different one. So I think the Mavericks are gonna upset the Jazz because they just won game 2. And from both games, I haven't really thought the Jazz have looked like a cohesive unit. They definitely have some odds with each other, even outside of the Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell thing. But I had to put this out there. I don't know if I've said it on our last episode, but Donovan Mitchell averages 2 passes a game to Rudy Gobert, not assists. 2 passes. Yeah. Like, that means he straight up does not give an F about this man. So that's pretty wild to me.
That is wild. I didn't know that. That's incredible.
Yeah, like, that tells you, I think, pretty much all you need to know. Outside of those guys, or outside of Mitchell, their only scorer is like Bogdanovich and Clarkson off the bench. Otherwise, Mike Conley just had a horrible game. He had 0 points. He was like 0 of 7. He's clearly not who he used to be. You just cannot rely on that consistency like you used to be able to. Joe Ingles is not there anymore. This team feels like it's falling apart to me. And the Mavericks, they're hungry. Jalen Brunson is proving he wants to prove further. They deserves a big payday. Yeah. And they're going to get Luka back too. Yep.
It's going to be tough for the Jazz. I don't know what they're going to... It's a tough decision because I think they're not going to make it past the second round looking the way they do. And it's a super tough decision because, like, what do you do? Who do you get rid of? And I think people are instantly like, yeah, well... So that's funny because instantly everyone's like, their superstar is Donovan Mitchell, and he is a superstar.
Astros would tell you.
Yeah, but Gobert is their defense. He is the reason their defense is one of the best in the league. Like, you take that away, he should have won his
gone. 4th Defensive Player of the Year this year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Only reason he didn't win it is because people were tired of voting for him.
Yeah,
like he's so good at defense that people got bored of it.
And he's getting better on defense, especially perimeter defense. He's not dropping as much. It's great. It's great to see because he was a liability 2 years ago. People were like, oh, in the playoffs, you can just like do pick and roll and You'll always get the drop or get the switch, and he's ridiculous. You still can't get it's still not ideal, but he can switch on, and he can still and he's gotten better at guarding guards.
Yeah.
But
and I believe he could be better on offense because he just needs more opportunity. Like if you get a guy in there that's willing to play with Rudy, I mean, how can he ever get shots up when your highest usage player, your star, doesn't pass him the ball?
Yeah, and I do think Donovan Mitchell would be more willing to leave the team than
he probably wants
Gobert.
to leave.
He's probably he already has talked a ton about how racist they are and how he just doesn't like some of the bunch of the fan behavior. So I think he would be more likely to leave. But yeah, this could definitely. Yeah. I just didn't see it as much as an upset because of 4 and 5. But
I feel that. But I think at the same time, it's like you're facing the Mavericks without Luka for the first 2 games. So you should have destroyed them those games, but you barely beat them game 1, and then you lost game 2. Now Luka's around the corner. Like, the Jazz have squandered an opportunity here after they were the number 1 seed last year. They've just seemingly never been the same team since.
Mm-hmm. Hey, maybe there'll be a trade for Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson for each other. that might be in the cards, but that's a very possible upset. That could be the most likely upset. That you might have beat me out. I think more the Timberwolves is more of a hope for me that they upset the Grizzlies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you see, I'm hoping that too. We'll find out. But I think, trying to be realistic, I definitely think the Mavericks over Jazz is gonna happen.
Yeah.
Damn
right.
it, send it to the mail.
Let's move on to another Western team.
Huh?
Let's move on to another Western team that's having a little issues, like the Nuggets.
Yeah. Oh, then you want to talk about the Nuggets? Yeah, we're going to talk about the Nuggets and Nikola Jokic's emotional problems. He just got ejected yesterday. And I got to tell you, the reason I wanted to talk about this because I have a personal problem with it. Yeah. I had a parlay down. I bet $100 that Jokic, and 3 other guys. Oh, Monte Morris was the other, and it was like 2 guys from other games that they were going to hit their overs for their projections. I think Mitchell and Brunson were the others. So Mitchell, Brunson, and Morris had all hit their overs, and we're going into the 4th quarter. They're down 20. The Nuggets are to the Warriors, and Jokic needs to get 3 points, and I win $1,000. And guess what this motherfucker does to my degenerate ass? He gets himself ejected, and I don't get the payout because he couldn't score 3 points in the 4th quarter. And beyond my personal issues, he was tied in 10th for techs this year, and he was 11th last year. He had 3 ejections this year. Like, he's just turning into an emotional baby.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. He's getting frustrated. You see it actually. I think it's becoming more of a big man issue. You see that stuff with Joel, and you're starting to. I mean, we've always seen
Joel and Cat are like top 5 for techs this year.
You start to see it with these centers that run the offense, or if not a major part of the offense. And Vucevic has had his struggles. Granted, he's never been a hot type of player, but he's that type of complaining. Not saying he's one of the top centers, but he is one of the very most talented centers in the league. And Shaq made a great point. Obviously, he was a center in this league for a very long time, and he said there's just this unspoken rule that you're not allowed to use all your strength as a center. So when you get a smaller player and you back them down and they just flap and fall over, they'll get the call. But when all NBA players are strong, so when a smaller player like a Steph Curry just pushes people out of the way and uses his strength, he's allowed to use the full variation of his strength, and that's not bad. But obviously big guys are stronger, and it takes that advantage away from them. So I would be frustrated too. However, you just can't act like that. You have to. That's part of it. There's 2 sides to the coin.
I do agree that flopping is a huge contributor to this. The guys, especially, like, you have tons of guys not even playing defense. They're just trying to draw charges now.
Yeah. Anderson Varejao. That was his job, was to flop for the Cavs and the Warriors.
Your designated flopper. It's like, man, it just doesn't feel like basketball sometimes. There was a play yesterday. Kyle Lowry was just sprinting down the court alongside Fred VanVleet, and he was just like digging his like head and stuff like into his back and like trying to fall over and stuff. And it's like, dude, like stop trying to draw a foul. And like I think he got the call. Like he even drew a foul just like out of falling into him. It's like, this is not basketball. No. Like I thought you guys were basketball players. Like you're just turning into prima donna entertainers sometimes.
Oh yeah, and they're just like the rule. They just use the rules against them. That's why that. Granted, the NBA has taken steps that the Dwayne Wade rule, that one where they can't jump into players now, and what was that other the rule they did 2 years ago that changed?
Oh, the continuation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like now you can't like cross anymore, even though like there's a way. The only way to do it, like if their hand is in there, you can't just. Yeah. D'Lo does it all the time, but there's ways to
guys
do
are still doing it because you could draw fouls still. And they're like, well, it's worth it to get us closer to the bonus, even if we're not getting the free throws directly. Like they're still doing it. There's still benefit.
So this is something the NBA is trying to get. They just have to. They can't just say no flopping. There's very specific moves that they have to say. You can't do this. This type of foul means this now. So, like, they're doing what they can, but NBA players are smart. They're going to do whatever they can to abuse the rules.
They just keep finding ways to loophole the system. And I don't know, I just find it annoying that, like, basketball players can't just play basketball. Mm-hmm. Like, half this shit, and most of these players have played street ball. Like, they, grew up playing street ball. Or, like, a lot of them I know have, like we have. But I don't understand why they do all this flopping shit, knowing if they did that back home, they would get punched in the mouth.
Yeah. Or at the very least, it would just mean nothing. But yeah, it's taking.
Or like people would just be like, "Oh, you're out here dancing around." It's like, just play basketball. I mean, that's honestly, I used to hate the man more because of his decision to go Golden State, but I've really become a big fan of Kevin Durant lately because he just plays ball. He goes up and he shoots it over your ass. He talks shit to you, and he goes back and plays solid defense or does his best. So he just plays ball. He doesn't worry about flopping over or any of that other garbage.
Right. That's right. But it's a tough thing for centers. We'll see. What they do.
We'll do our last topic here, talking about the New Orleans Pelicans, who just won Game 2. And they are looking like they maybe can take a couple more games in this series. Now that Devin Booker is hurt, he's not playing in Game 3 or 4. That's been confirmed. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. What do you think? Can the Pelicans make it out of this first round?
I think they have a great chance. Granted, the Suns have proven that they can do it without Devin Booker. They've been good. However, this is the playoffs. It's the biggest stage. I think certain weaknesses are exploited much, much more, and it's more of a glaring mistake without not having him. I do trust in Chris Paul, but I think this is now a legit series they can lose. I mean, they were my favorites to go to the finals out of the West, and now we'll see. We'll see if they can turn it around when Devin Booker comes back. But CJ McCollum, I've always said, is one of the best guards in the playoffs. He always shows up. And he's great. He just has to stay on the floor. It has been his issue. But BI has been great. Valanciunas has been solid. Herb Jones, rookie, just killing it. Obviously the defensive player. And so, obviously a great defensive player. So I think they have the tools to beat the Suns. And I think it's certainly possible.
Yeah, Willie Green made some great choices these first two games, realizing what rotations weren't working and getting the right guys out there, knowing that Brandon Ingram is rising up above and hitting his shots. Like, man, that dude getting hit so many contested mid-range shots. He's
like Kevin Durant.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of like a Kevin Durant light in a way.
Yeah.
And outside of that, I mean, you're doing this without Zion. You've got some decent shooters on the team, but you've got your really aggressive Valanciunas that's going to help you get rebounds and more possessions. So they've really got some good strengths here that can give the Suns some more trouble, because both games they've obviously had trouble. Even the first game when Booker was there, they let the Pelicans get back into it at the end of the game.
Yeah, it's this Pelicans team. They're looking scary. I was just thinking about. I was like, the starting lineup next year is gonna. I do think McCollum will move to the point guard. He's played point guard in college. That's kind of what he did, and he is a good playmaker. Yeah. He's solid. So I think it'll be McCollum, Herb Jones, Ingram, Williamson, Valanciunas will be the starting lineup, and then obviously Devontae's Graham off the bench and whomever else they have. I think Jackson Hayes is going to come off the bench. I think that's going to be great. I think they're going to definitely be a playoff team.
Well, they were starting Jackson Hayes for a lot of the season too, so wouldn't be surprised if it's Herb Jones that ends up coming off the bench. But
with Ingram at the 2,
with Ingram at the.
I don't know with Valen.
Who's their? I guess Williamson's coming back either way, but. I don't think maybe Hayes doesn't start then. Yeah, I guess I forget that Zion's on this team.
yeah, I know, which is scary because like when you look at it, if they're playing this well, obviously they caught their stride at the end of the season, much like the Timberwolves. And if the Timberwolves are going to be as good as they are next year, like that's 2 solid playoff teams. What 2 teams get pushed out of the playoff contention next year? I do think the Jazz will get pushed out next year.
Maybe. I mean, if they still have Mitchell and Gobert, I think they're in. It depends on what happens with them.
But then what team? I do think the Timberwolves and the Pelicans will be either top 7 teams next year in the West.
Yeah, you gotta expect the Clippers to be there too. They'll get Kawhi and Paul George.
Man, this competition's crazy. West is good again.
Yeah, and Nuggets are gonna be healthy again too.
Yep. But Nuggets were already a 6 seed, so.
Who? You're right. Who's the 3? Well, I mean, maybe
Warriors. Warriors are gonna still be good. Suns still gonna be good.
Regress a little bit. They're not gonna miss the playoffs though.
No, yeah, they might regress out of the 2nd seed. Mavs, are they gonna take a hit?
Mavs could take a hit. I think it really depends on the Jalen Brunson scenario and how they rebound on if they lose him. So. Is Spencer Dinwiddie going to be as good as he was this year? Is Davis Bertans going to be as good? Do they trade him? So
we'll see.
Who else made the playoffs in the West?
Suns, Grizzlies, Warriors. Then you have the Mavs, the Jazz, and then Nuggets. That's the playoffs, and then it's the Pelicans and the Wolves, Clippers, and who else was in the play-in? Lakers.
Spurs.
Oh, Spurs. Lakers did make it Spurs. It's tough. It's going to be a very competitive West. Next season's going to be crazy. Yeah. I don't think anybody in the West is going to win more than 65 games. You're not going to Suns won't have another dominant season because these teams are going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be some tough games next year. I mean, we'll see what happens. I could see the Nuggets ending up as a top 3 team. I could see the Wolves ending up as a top 3 team. Like I see a lot of teams stepping up. Like why can't the Wolves get to a top 3 seed? I mean, the Grizzlies just took that big leap this year. I get to see the Wolves making the leap next year.
Yeah, well,
why not?
I think it depends to make sure they're still their defensive consistency. If they can figure that out during the regular season, I think that then they could do it.
Yeah, I assume they'll get better. So I mean, well, we'll see. Like it's a chance. Like there's no perfection here, but a lot of these teams are all assuming that they're going to get better. So we'll see who's actually right.
Yeah. Well, interesting. I'm excited. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm already excited for next year, and we're still in the playoffs. I still got a lot more to be excited
for. The playoffs are, super exciting this year. So, I'm having fun with that. And hopefully next year things are even better. But, I mean, this year for now, I'm just enjoying that the Wolves are in the playoffs, 2nd time in 15 years. So basically, 2nd time in my watching lifetime, because I didn't really watch the Wolves before that much. So definitely feels good. That blowout sucked, but they're coming back home, and we'll see if we can get a couple wins here and maybe get 3-1 on them. Go back to Memphis up 3-1. That would be pretty nice.
That would be nice. I'm with you. Yeah, hopefully they can do that. If they can keep their advantage, we'll see.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, that's going to be a wrap for us. We're Strictly Ball Business. Of course, you need to subscribe down below and watch our other videos. So we love you all, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey, guys, like and subscribe to our videos. I like talking balls. You guys like hearing about balls. Come on, just do it. Press the button.